Okay, so I've been wanting to make this video for a long time. I talk to a lot of students who are bar exam retakers, students who failed the bar exam once or twice before, and they're now preparing to take the exam again. And what I want to do in this video is actually tell you some of the most synthesized tips that I give them that I think are critical if you are taking the bar exam for a second time. If you are a retaker, this video is going to try to give you what I think are some of the most important tips to keep in mind as you proceed through retaking the bar exam. So without further ado, let's jump right in. So before we get started, be sure to subscribe to this channel for more of these videos. If you're looking for audio outlines or essay materials or bar exam materials in general, check us out at BarcastAudio.com. We have you covered there. We have tons of material for you. Check us out over there. They're perfect for studying on the go, for some extra studying while you're at the gym. Whatever you can do to fill that extra time, we have it over for you at BarcastAudio.com. So let's talk how you can actually improve as a retaker. So the first important mistake I see retakers make all the time is very simply that they fail to appreciate what sunk them the first time. They think maybe there was some sort of event, something happened that prompted them to fail. Oh, you know, I got sick in week 3 of studying and that kind of torpedoed my whole process. What they think more about, and I think it's the wrong line of thinking, is how much they studied versus how they actually studied. You need to do a full audit of what you did the first time. You need to understand how much concentrated studying time, hours-wise, was I actually putting in. How were you engaging with the content? Were you just passively listening to the notes, doing fill-ins, something like that? Or were you actually turning those notes every day into something active? If it was the prior or the former, you need to really appreciate how you can change that strategy going forward. And a lot of times what that means is doing something active with your notes every day that you are studying. Whether that means making flashcards, whether that means making handwritten outlines. Do something active. If you're somebody who doesn't like to handwrite things, I would say push yourself to do it anyways, because I think that there is something tangible about turning your content that is on the screen into a physical manifestation of that knowledge that is essential to me, and I think is a really essential element of allowing you to scaffold the knowledge necessary to ultimately pass the bar exam. So try to make something physical from all the information you're taking out, whether that be a wrong answer book where you're writing out all the wrong answers for all your questions, or whether that is actual physical flashcards of the minor subjects or subtopics that you're doing throughout the day, throughout the lectures themselves. The second key element that I always talk with retakers about is the idea of memorization. Too often, students who fail and are coming back, they're either daunted by how much they have to memorize, or they don't really appreciate how detailed their memorization has to be. And maybe that's what sunk them the first time. You have to understand that in order to get the questions right, you need to build a solid basis of knowledge. And that comes from memorizing. But the process by which you're asked to memorize the nuances of the law is kind of difficult for the bar exam, because you're sort of asked to take questions and practice questions on nuances that you haven't quite mastered yet, because your memorization is not quite at that level yet. But it's only through doing those practice questions that you can gain that memorization and sort of fail your way to victory. And a lot of students are uncomfortable by that. They put off doing practice questions because they're uncomfortable by the idea of doing practice questions before they've memorized. You can only do both at once, and the process itself is sort of designed to have both occurring concurrently. So you need to be comfortable with getting questions wrong, and you need to view every wrong question as an opportunity to then learn that rule, to write out that rule, use it as a jumping off point for diving further into that subtopic and appreciating what you don't understand about the nuances of that area. The number 3 major thing I always see is that students just don't want to do essays. And I get that. It's not fun, it's not pleasant to do. So what I tell students very often is, why don't you write out answers? Write out the model answers that you receive from your bar exam prep company, whatever it may be. Write out some of those model answers so you get a feel for what a really great perfect essay is. Because a lot of those model answers are the perfect version. They're not the best. I mean, they're not like a human version. They're kind of like if you had all day and all week to write out an untimed answer to this question, this is what it would look like. But the real questions, the real model answers often don't look like that. They're going to be a little more bare, but they are still going to hit all the points that you need to hit. I often say that essays on the bar exam are a lot more like word math problems than they are actual essays that conventionally thought about. And the reason for that is that they're checking off a lot of points. You need to show your work, and only by showing your work, how you reach the conclusion in your full analysis, can you maximize your points. So when I say that, you really need to, 3, 2, 1. So what I mean there is, when you're moving through a practice essay, you need to hit all these little points, and you need to tell everyone the nuances of the law before you get into your analysis. And only by going through every little rule statement can you maximize your points by connecting the facts of the hypothetical to the rule itself and reaching your ultimate analysis and conclusion. So I know I started this, I went on kind of a tangent there because I started by talking about just how important it is to take practice essays. But it is critical. You need to take time to practice essays. Too many people are uncomfortable by that fact, and I get it. It's not the most pleasant thing in the world. It's not the easiest thing in the world to take practice essays, but you got to do it. That's life. Only by practicing and failing can we get there. And I mentioned this idea of getting comfortable with the idea of being uncomfortable, and you need to do that. You need to try to take an essay cold, timed, and realize, like, I don't know what's going on here, but how can I still try to get points even if I don't necessarily know the rule that they're asking about? Only by failing there, only by experiencing that sort of stress, can you return and get to the place where you feel comfortable even when you don't necessarily know the law cold, that you can figure something out and still get points in a situation where you otherwise might have sort of collapsed and failed. So another question I get very often is, what do high-scoring repeat takers do differently from other students? And very simply, they're willing to admit that they were wrong. They're willing to take accountability for the failings in their earlier process. Too often, I meet students who they're blaming something that happened to them in the early stages of bar prep the first time that caused them to fail. You know, I was planning a wedding, I had something happen. And listen, sometimes that's the truth. Maybe you had a death in the family. You cannot account for that. You can only control what you can control. But what you control is the amount of work that you're putting in. What you need to understand is that the students, the repeat takers who see the most market improvement are those who are willing to take accountability and say, you know, I just feel like I wasn't doing anything active with my notes. I wasn't really doing practice questions. I didn't take enough MBE questions. I wasn't committing myself in the way that I need to be committed to take this exam. And only by being honest with yourself and taking that accountability can we get over the hump of passing the bar exam. If you're not ready to get there, that's okay. But you need to start that process. You need to be honest. Be honest with yourself and say, you know what, maybe this worked for me in law school, maybe it worked for me in another context, but what I was doing from a studying perspective just was not a recipe for success on the bar exam, and the results speak for themselves. So if you are willing to do that, if you are willing to be honest with yourself, if you are willing to follow the other tips that I've sort of gone through within this video, I think you're on the right path to ultimately passing the bar exam as a retaker. Now, if you want some more tips, you want some more materials to help you memorize the law as you need to be prepared to do, we have everything over at BarcastAudio.com, audio outlines, audio flashcards, we have essay tack sheets to help you attack everything. A lot of great materials there. Be sure to check us out at BarcastAudio.com. Until later, I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye now.